How will this impact Kawhi's free agency decision?
Skip, before you go, I know you're going first, but you were ahead of this.
Oh,
you beat Woj. You beat Shams. You beat everybody. You said this was a more serious injury and he was going to require surgery. You said that, and everybody's looking at you sideways.
They were.
Now, we're going to give you your flowers here.
Thank you.
Carry on.
Appreciate that very much. So, given what I have been reporting, given the fact that Kawhi and his inner circle believed that the Clippers staff misdiagnosed this injury from day one, I am now not going to be at all shocked if we get another Kawhi bombshell a la 2 years ago on July 5th when we here in L.A. had a serious earthquake, followed about an hour later by a bombshell report that just when everybody thought Kawhi was going Lakers, 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 just when LeBron was telling the reporters he was closest to, we got him, we got him, we got him.
Right.
He went Clippers.
Right.
And now I'm not so sure that he won't go elsewhere. I have no idea where elsewhere would be.
Right.
I'm sure Pat Riley would like to get in the middle of this. I'm sure the Knicks would. I don't think Kawhi would go to the Knicks because I don't think he'd think they have enough chance to win.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe the Heat, we'll see. But my point is, things have now changed with the Clippers, very possibly for the worst. So let's quickly walk back through what happened. So it's Game 4 at Staples. They are about to even it up, the series with Utah, at 2-all because they're up 17 with 5:25 left. And if we could see the play, just to remind everybody what happened, it didn't look that bad.
Didn't.
He got bumped by Joe Ingles on kind of a semi-break, just bumped sideways, and he came down a little bit awkwardly and wrong on his knee, just a little bit awkwardly there on the knee. And the ACL tore slightly, not hugely. It didn't rupture. It just tore a little bit. So what did I do the next day? Well, I was a little skeptical about whether he would even play in Game 5. And you said, oh, come on, it's Game 5. He's got to play now because it's 2-all. And they'd come back against Dallas. Now they have a chance to come back against Utah. Well, he didn't play in Game 5. I came out skeptically the next morning and said, well, here we go again. And this is a guy who has a long history in this league of not playing with even the slightest minor injury. And so I thought, gee, tweaked his knee, and now he wouldn't even go in Game 5. Well, then I was told, guess what? He needs surgery, which I reported the next day to you across this table. And they did not even tell the Clippers exactly what was happening because they were so upset that the Clippers medical staff had misdiagnosed. So what did the TV networks continue to do? Whoever had the games, they would just go game to game and say, well, Kawhi's day-to-day here. He's sort of a game-time decision with a, what did they keep reporting? A sprained knee. A sprained knee? And I'm saying, man, I got it on really good source. It's torn, and he needs surgery. So Kawhi started to come to the games. He set up in the box, as you knew, and then I thought it was a semi-good sign that final game, Game 6 at Staples, he actually came down out of the box where he had his family.
Sat on the sidelines.
Yeah, sat on the sidelines at the end of the bench. Didn't really cheerlead because he doesn't cheerlead much. That's just what he is. But they did say he was actively involved in game planning from game to game by FaceTiming Ty Lue. So the point is that now he had the surgery, and the Clippers weren't even aware that he was going to have the surgery until Kawhi and company called them yesterday and said, we need to go ahead and release that we had surgery. Well, I'm going to hand it off to you now, because how much would that scare you if you're the Clippers, that you were completely out of this loop through all those playoff games, that he even needed surgery?
I would be petrified because he's a guy that if he felt he's been wrong or he felt you haven't taken, because he felt the San Antonio wasn't taking his injury serious.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that we saw this. It feels like this is deja vu.
That was the beginning of the end. When you say it's a sprain, he goes outside and they say it's partially torn. Well, he's not going to trust you the same. He doesn't look at you the same. Now, Skip, I don't believe this will have any impact in his free agency, because if you get a chance to get a guy like Kawhi, I'll give you a prime example. Kevin Durant tore his Achilles, and teams were still lining up at the door. They say, I'll take as long as you want. As long as we have Kevin Durant in our uniform, be it next year or the year after, we're willing to wait.
Obviously, there's some doubt that he won't ever be Kevin Durant again, but guess what? He was, and he is.
But we were willing to take the chance.
They were.
Even if he's not,
they were
right. Correct.
Yep.
That's the same thing with this young man here. You're willing to roll the dice and says, we believe that he's going to come back, but if it doesn't, oh well. But at least we got him in out. Skip, I've given up trying to figure out what Kawhi Leonard is going to do. And I think everybody should give that up.
I would agree.
Because the moment you think you know what he's going to do, he's going to do something totally opposite of what you think he should do. But he was going to do this all along. Only he and Uncle Dennis really knows what's going to transpire. Now, you know, I've been reading just like a lot of other people. Well, if he opts in and then he can sign next year and get 205, or if he opts out, the max he can get is this and that.
Okay, it's very complex.
It
because
is.
You can make a case if he opts in, he loses a little up front, but you can go out farther, and in that fourth year, you can get $50 million.
Correct.
So it's a real close call.
But it needs to be with the Clippers.
With the Clippers.
Correct. You can only you can't max it out. You can only get 4 years if you go to another team. So for me, Skip, this is I hate seeing this because he was playing unbelievable. And he talked about it because they asked him, Skip, they said, well, so what are you going to do? He's like, obviously, if I'm healthy, I'm going to opt out. That would be the smart business thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, it still might be the smart business thing to do because you're Kawhi. You're a superstar. You're one of those 5 players that every team will move heaven and earth. They've already moved it. Skip, they gave up 2022, 24, 26 first rounders. They swapped 23 and 25. So they've already moved heaven and earth.
They have this year's first round, and that's the only one in the next 7 years that they have.
Yes.
And it's mostly because of Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
And Paul George.
Well, he said, well, if you don't get me Paul George, and Sam Presti says, how bad y'all want Paul George? So if Kawhi says, I want the moon, Steve Ballmer's going to go to Jeff Bezos or he's going to go to Richard Branson and say, how much for one of them Jets to get Kawhi to the moon? Because that's what he wants. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep him here.
That is true.
So for me, Skip, I don't know what Kawhi's going to do. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I do know. I just know he still has all the leverage. It's not like football, Skip. You know, you tear an ACL or you tear an Achilles in a contract year, the team has all the leverage. Okay. Everybody has the leverage over you, but not in that sport because superstars move the needle. They can change the fortune. Skip, we talk about the Clippers. We never talked about the Clippers before Kawhi got there.
No.
Especially since Chris Paul and Lob City left. So he still has the leverage. Somebody is still going to be willing to move Kawhi. What can we do? What do we need to do to get you?
Well, what did we just see? He averaged 38 and 4 through the playoff run, as long as he lasted. 38 and 4. And there were nights when I said, that just might be
the best player.
That might be the best player going both ways.
Right.
And in PER, if you take everybody's total for the playoffs, he still leads the whole playoffs in PER. And for the record, Giannis is 7th in player efficiency rating.
Right.
So Kawhi was putting up huge numbers. It was almost like he was making a contract surge in the playoffs because he knew he had a chance.
Right.
And listen, I don't care who you are or how big or little your ego is. Everybody loves to get wined and dined. And he really enjoyed the process he went through. Remember all those surreptitious secret flights here and there? Is he in Toronto or is he not in Toronto? Did he stay? You know, what is he doing? Well, I think we're in for another round of that this time. A lot of secret meetings, a lot of secret phone calls, nobody knowing, everybody, all the media at his beck and call guessing because they don't talk to the media. There's nobody from the Wojs to the Shams who have an in with that group because they just stonewall everybody.
Yeah, normally, and sometimes the way it seems the way they vetted this, they might say something knowing it's not true. And if it gets out, they know where it came from, and then boom, you're excommunicated. So basically, if I don't hear from Uncle Dennis and I don't hear from Kawhi, I ain't believing. I don't believe nothing.
Okay, so now we look at the Clippers' plight. This is just me. If that hadn't happened...
I was going to say, I thought you said if he leaves.
No, I'm saying if he hadn't been bumped by Joe Ingles, and I'm not blaming Joe Ingles because it looked like nothing.
It's a freak, yes.
It was very freakish, and he did stay in the game for another minute. He missed the first 2 free throws, which gave me pause like, is something wrong with him? Is he troubled in his head? But then He stayed in the game for a minute and went back to Bogdanovich, fouled him and went back to the free throw line and made those two. And then he took himself out with 4:35 left in a game they were up 16 in. And by the way, you could argue with 5:25 left, they're up 17. Ty could have pulled him out. But we saw these teams go on, especially Utah, on three-point binges.
Yep.
I'm with Ty Lue, you got to just finish them off.
You hit 3 threes and now skip. It's an 8-point ball game.
And you're saying, wow, what did we just do? Yeah. And then can Kawhi get back? Can he get his rhythm back? So I don't blame him for for Ty Lue having him in the ball game.
Correct.
But the point was, if he hadn't torn his ACL at that point, I just believe the Clippers were positioned to make a run through this, and they would be in the finals right now, and they would be. I think they'd be leading the finals right now. That's just my gut feeling. So the
I'm
point
not gonna
is,
disagree with you.
Okay, so when you look at Steve Ballmer, who wanted this, so you watch him over there just going crazy, screaming and yelling, and he thinks because everything in his life, money could buy that, money could buy that. This is the one thing money really can't buy because there's too much luck that goes into it.
Right.
And we've seen this whole playoff run determined by injuries. Everywhere, starting with the Lakers.
Yep.
And it looked like the Suns were in trouble. And then they weren't in trouble. Right. Then it looked like Milwaukee was in trouble because they'd lost Giannis. And now he seems 100%. Right. And now Milwaukee seems like the healthiest team left in the playoffs, right?
We saw the Nets go through it.
Okay, everybody went through it. So Ballmer's learning there's some things money can't control because money can't buy injury protection.
Nope.
You just can't. So now Ballmer sits back and he says, okay, well, I'd love to run this back. Well, the problem is Reggie Jackson became a huge part of it, and it's going to be very difficult for them to keep him.
He ain't playing for 1.7 again next year, Skip.
They have only his early bird rights. I don't want to get too complex and technical here, but they can maybe get up to $10 million to offer him. Well, I'm pretty sure somebody will offer him more than $10 million.
Right.
And then it'll be up to Reggie. It's almost like Tampa Bay Bucks.
Right.
Do you want to run it back because you thought you had a chance? Well, the Bucks won it all.
Right.
So they could all say, we did this, and we know we could do it again.
Right.
Well, these guys didn't do it.
Right.
So do they know they could do it again? Do you want to risk that you're going to give up 10 extra million?
Exactly. And for the very reason that you just spoke about.
Yep.
Injuries.
Yep.
That's the Skip. They going along. They riding along smooth. They feel very good. Hold on. We came back against Dallas.
Yeah.
We was down 0-2 against Utah. Came back, won 4 straight. We're feeling great. And then boom. Once Kawhi gets, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah. So they have to love what they did without Kawhi because they made quite a run without him. They went 4-4 without Kawhi after he was gone in those 8 games. But who played another sort of guts and glue role for them was Nicholas Batum. He played the 5th most minutes in the playoffs, so he was playing starters minutes. Right. And he started a couple of the games.
He's a free agent also.
Okay, he's a free agent, and they have only their mid-level exception that they can delve into to try to keep him. Well,
but Charlotte's still on the hook for $9 million.
For $9 million. So maybe you got a chance there.
Right.
But then the key piece to this is going to be Reggie Jackson.
Right.
And I don't know if they can keep him. And then I'm really uncertain they can keep Kawhi. So if a team's going to bid for Kawhi, what do they have to extrapolate out? Well, they'd say, maybe we could have him by midseason. I was told the tear is not that bad, that it's imminently fixable, and they did it yesterday, and that they were happy with it.
But here's the thing with Kawhi.
Yeah.
Most athletes says, I'm gonna work my butt off, and I'm gonna get back as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Kawhi says, I'm gonna get back when I can.
When it's right.
Yeah,
when my body tells me it's okay.
You think about he tried to, no, he ain't. It's not gonna be Adrian Peterson. No. Adrian Peterson tears his ACL in December. No, he comes back. That ain't how Kawhi works.
It is not, which means that probably he won't be available until toward next year's playoffs. So if he is a Clipper, they might have a problem making it into the playoffs.
Correct.
You know, could they eke into the play-in tournament and then get Kawhi back? Right. Well, you're going to have to pay a whole lot of money to find out to keep him, and somebody else is going to have to go Kevin Durant and just bet on the future and just say, well, we're willing to pay you the sun and the moon just to see if we can have you for the following year, not for next year, but the following year.
But Skip, even if you think about it, two of the last 3 years, he's had an injury. One injury kept him out 74 games, and now he has this injury. Is he willing to roll the dice and chance it? Because all the load management, it still does not exempt you from freak injuries. This was freak.
It was freak. He turned 30, did Kawhi Leonard, on June 29th. So now you're getting into that stage and age where it starts to multiply in injuries. If you're injury prone, then it gets nth degree worse as you over time. LeBron has never been injury prone, and all of a sudden he had one 2 years ago, and then he went a whole year without one, and now he had one this time. And the odds are next year, if he plays all the way through, the odds are going way up that he's going to have some. I'm going to knock on wood for him because I hate to even bring this up, but the odds are increasing that he'll have another injury because he is. Last time I checked, he is human.
Well, yeah, he's about to be 37 in December.
Yeah, okay, so with Kawhi, he's like an older 30 to me because he has kind of an old man's type body that, listen, again, he was my favorite player when he was a Spur, but we don't have enough show for me to run through the litany of injuries he suffered as a Spur for those years because it was every part of his body got hurt. He had a shoulder. He had an elbow. He had a broken hand. He obviously had various knee ailments. He had Achilles issues. He had foot issues. Everything got hurt, and he would miss a few games at a time over this or that.
But sometimes, Skip, a lot of times guys would have these injuries, but they would play through them, and so the team wouldn't list them.
Yeah,
but because
you wouldn't know.
Right, but because he's like, nope, I don't feel good. The team ended up listing these injuries, and then the list got extensive.
Yeah, like if I look back at your career, you were always playing a more dangerous game than his, although his is fairly dangerous. But you suffered a litany of injuries I didn't know about because you guys didn't divulge because you didn't really need to.
Right.
Because they fell under the auspices of you just play through that.
Correct.
Everybody's got these.
Yes.
You just suck it up and go.
Yeah. If you're in the NFL season, Skip, and after the first game, if you're healthy, you ain't playing.
Yep. Okay.
That means you're not playing. Because if you're one of those starters, and you're one of those guys that's playing the red, you got bumps and bruises.
You're just going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, so the point is, in the end, I hope he's a Clipper for their sake because they've invested a lot.
He's got to be.
And they got a little taste of this, and they could have finished it off, and it probably just tore up Steve Ballmer that they got that close and they didn't have their guy. But now you have to figure out a way to keep him because this time, now he could also just sign for short. He could do the 2-year deal so that he could hit the lottery in 2 years on the open market. Right. But at that point, that's the gamble for him to take.
Yeah, are you willing to roll the dice and take that kind of risk?
Kawhi.
Yes.
Because then you're 32 and you might be beat up.
Right.
And would somebody give you the max at age 32 on the open market, or would you take the bird in the hand for rights that are in the hand with your Clippers now? Because you could. You could opt back in. You could put 4 more years beyond next year on this deal that climaxes with $50 million in the 4th year, which would be 5 years from now.
Right.
Well, you want to talk about set for life.
Yes.
That's taking bird in the hand.
Yes.
Okay.
And Skip, but Steve Ballmer, you know how he's on pins and needles with every possession, every shot. He's really on pins and needles right now because this would ruin the Clippers. We saw what when KD left, and they got nothing in return for him.
Yep.
It basically ended, Russ won the MVP. Yes, he kept them competitive, but we all knew Russ had no chance of getting this team to a championship. Well, that's what would happen. They're not coming out of the Western Conference without that guy on their roster.
So it's possible that LeBron is now safe in what I was calling Kawhi Town. It's possible that Kawhi Town is now Georgetown at best because it's possible that the Los Angeles Clippers next year will feature Paul George without Kawhi and without Reggie Jackson, and Terrence Mann's going to have to be the second star.
Right.
Okay? Well, is he capable of rising into that? Probably not.
Even if he does, Skip, you need that guy.
You just do. If you're going to win a championship,
you need that guy. He's one of the 5 best. They don't grow. Those guys don't grow on trees, and you don't get an opportunity to get one of them very often.
Nope.
So even with that partial tear of his ACL, if he says, you know what, I'm going to move, there are going to be 15, 20 teams lining up. Okay, Uncle Dennis, what is it going to take for us to get him? What do you want? What does he need?
Look, in the end, he's a weird dude. And there are times he's hard to love, but he is impossible to replace.
Yes.
In the end, that's
Yes.
who he is. It's hard. He's hard to read and harder to replace.
This is why most of these guys, Skip,
Yeah.
have their own team.
Yeah.
They've come to realize that these teams are not going to always be on the up and up.
Nope.
And they're going to tell us what we need to know in order to get us back on the court. So let me go ahead. I got enough money. I can hire my own group.
Absolutely.
So, and I can go get my own imaging. I can get my own x-rays, my
He
CTs.
did.
Yes.
He did.
I can have my own PTs. And so now, because, Skip, they tell him it's a sprain, okay, you're going to be okay in a couple of days, and this man goes back out there, Skip, and he rips it.
Yeah. So the last possibility I'll throw back at you is it even remotely possible, and I don't even know how this would work against the cap, that the Lakers could make a run at it.
Don't do that, Skip.
Well,
don't do that. Y'all
okay.
don't want no kind of problem.
Well, that's what, because he does love living here because
Yes.
he's from here.
Yes.
So the prospect of pulling up roots, even though he'd keep his offseason here and
Right.
playing in, let's say, Miami, it might not be completely appealing to
Right.
him. He'd rather stay in the ballpark.
Yeah,
here,
he strikes me as a Cali kid.
He is a Cali.
Yeah, he did what he had to do.
Yeah.
He did what he had to do to get back to Cali.
Yeah.
I don't think he did what he had to do to get back to Cali and all of a sudden uproot to Miami. But Skip, when you're dealing with him, all bets are off now.
Yeah.
All bets are off.
All bets.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.